And when did that come up for you that you're like, I'm going in?
Eighth grade, 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember going home from school, and what did it for me, they sent everyone home, and there's like an early afternoon newspaper, like a special edition newspaper that was delivered like because of what just happened. And I remember I cut out that newspaper front page and I pinned it on my wall in my room. And it's actually followed me ever since. It with me to college. It was in my locker during military training, and
Hmm.
it's above the garage, above my squat rack right now, just thumbtacked to the drywall. Um, but I distinctly remember the watching on the news people in the Middle East burning our flag and celebrating in the streets. And like as a young man, I was in eighth grade, probably 110 pounds dripping wet, but thought I was this tough guy.
Yeah.
Like that was whether my young eighth grade version justification of it was right. I made a decision then that like I eventually want an opportunity to carry a rifle so I can potentially go after these men that are burning our flag and want to destroy our way of life.
Hmm.
And I think my reasoning became maybe a little more nuanced as I got older and got closer to making that decision. But the eighth grade version of me, it was like, all right, it's game on because there's grown ass men across the world that want me to die, and they're
Hmm.
celebrating the death of close to 3,000 people. Like fuck that. So that was the decision. This is happening, and I almost did the Navy out of high school. I was talking to recruiters and I was just going to enlist. But football was progressing, and I got the chance to go play football at Yale. And like my parents were kind of like, "Hey, it's a good school. You can get a good education. It can open up a lot of doors for you later on in life. So, hey, why don't you go do this college football thing, get a degree, and if you still want to do it, then you can still do this crazy dream you have. But like, at least go get an education first." And
Yeah.
um, it was good in the fact that I did get a degree. I made a lot of great friends at Yale. I think I learned a lot. I think playing a Division I sport teaches you a lot as well. But I will say this, like I did miss out on all the wars. Like was by the time I went in, and then I waited a little bit after college too.
Hmm.
I think my career in the military would have been wildly different had I done it right out of high school.
Yeah.
So the fork in the road, that leads to different life events. But I do think back of that often. Is had I done it when I wanted to, how different would have what are my experiences in the actual military been as compared to what they were.
The
But either
timing.
way, like no regrets. I mean, you know what I mean? You make the decisions in real time and you roll with it. But I do reflect on that a bit.
Yeah, that's crazy because it would have changed the whole BP history too, for sure.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, BP probably isn't a thing then at that point, really.
Hmm. Wild.
Yeah.
And like getting through SEAL training, and was there any mindset kind of hacks that you were leaning on at that time?
I think the biggest thing that helped, and I think most guys did this whether they realized it or not, but was by focusing on the wellness of the guys around you, it tricks your mind into not thinking of your own misery.
Mm.
And it's crazy, man. I mean, it totally works. And I've even now applied that to my life. This past year has been like probably the hardest year of my life. And I kind of realized halfway through the year, I was like, I need to pull out the old trick that I used in that training. And rather than focusing on my own misery, like I need to start reaching out to buddies and ask them how they're doing. And for my buddies that are struggling, really lean in, like really being there for them. Because when I'm having a conversation with a buddy who's going through a hard time, I forget about my own pain. And you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that's how, same thing in SEAL training. So when shit got real bad and you're cold and this and that, you're looking to your left and right and, hey dude, you good? You know what I mean? Like, and it's, so that I think is a total mind hack. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know what's happening in the chemistry of your brain for that to occur, but I think that was the biggest thing. And then, I think the biggest thing is just also, you talked about burning the boats. That's a situation where you absolutely have to burn the boats, because I think people that go into that kind of training, whether it's SEAL training or any of these other hard selection processes, they think they want to do it, and they in their mind they've convinced themselves they want to do this. But I think a couple things happen. Is one, a lot of guys that don't make it, I think, wanted to say they were SEALs. They didn't want to actually be SEALs. Like they didn't
Hmm.
want to. The guys that make it want to do the job once we're through the training. Like they genuinely want to do it. They don't want to be able to. They're not doing it so they can go to a party and tell someone that's who they are. Right.
Hmm.
Those people don't make it. And I think the people that don't make it also didn't burn the boats, man. They think they burn the boats, but then as soon as it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're in the Pacific, freezing cold, and you haven't slept in 3 days. You're like, well, I could go back to being an accountant, or like I could go back to being a bricklayer with my dad, or you know what I mean? Like you start justifying like like that maybe that boat does still exist and I can take that off ramp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's usually what happens, man. So I think it's just going in, doing it for the right reasons, and then focusing on others more than yourself is a pretty good formula for kind of navigating that wild experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a good hack. It's so true how that works. Like even in the Mountain Tough Lab, we'll see that over and over and over again, where you're pushing some teams through like an extremely challenging team-based workout, and you'll watch some of those leaders rise up out of that occasion, and they'll start focusing on everyone else around them and start like really encouraging someone who's struggling, encouraging someone who's dying. And you'll see like almost right in front of your eyes, you'll see that person who is encouraging others who was just dying. They'll get like that second wind, and all of a sudden they're just starting to crush it. And that it is awesome too, how you connected that to how that same tool can work in all the other areas of your life. Cause that's like the great thing about mindset and mental toughness is almost all of these things work in a backcountry hunting scenario, but they also are going to work out they're going to help in a workout scenario, but then they're going to help with a family scenario or a business scenario. I mean, the principles are the same, just applied in different aspects.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, because one might argue, hey, if you're really going through a rough time in life, you need to really focus on yourself and kind of go inward in this and that. And like, part of me is like, do the opposite, go external and really put yourself out there to try and help others. And before you know it, you've just like life hacked this, you know what I mean? This situation where you're showing so much concern for others that you're like, all right, I'm actually not doing too bad. You know what I mean? And I absolutely think it applies to a kind of a wide variety of circumstances, whether you're in the middle of a hard 30-minute workout and it's very, short lived, or, kind of zooming out to some life shit. I think it can work, man.